Welcome to Architects of Latino Success. I'm your host, Joe Castillo, and today's guest is Leo Pareja, CEO of eXp Realty. Leo and I first connected during his time as national president of NAHREP, and since then, he's become a trusted mentor. Known for his authenticity and focus on building strong relationships, Leo shares his journey into real estate, the lessons he's learned during his leadership at NAHREP, and his approach to leadership. This conversation is so packed with value that we're splitting it into two parts. In this first part, we'll dive into how Leo got started, some of his most memorable challenges, and how he approaches leadership. Ready to get started? Vamos. Leo, thank you for joining the podcast, Architects of Latino Success.
Thank you for having me, Joe. This will be fun.
Yeah, looking forward to it. I know your time is limited, so I appreciate you making time for us. We've had a relationship now for quite a few years, and so I've always appreciated you making time for me when I've reached out, no matter your situation and your role. And so once again, thank you for making time for me today.
Well, I think that's a testament to just prioritizing real relationships, which is something I value quite a bit. And I always tell people, like, don't forget the seat you're in doesn't change you. And so relationships trump all stations in life, in my opinion, that are, real. So I value you as a human being and as a friend. And that's why I always say yes to you.
Well, I appreciate that. I think I have a feeling this conversation or this topic of relationships is going to be a central theme throughout this conversation. But if we were to get started, just because we know each other through real estate and through NAHREP. So just love a quick background of what got you into real estate and what motivated you to become a part of NAHREP.
Yeah, so my real estate story is it starts early. I went to college to do graphic design and go into tech. Ironic enough, I just chose the year 2000 to do that, which was not a good year to go into tech. So by my freshman year of college, like the job market had imploded, and I got obsessed with real estate after reading Rich Dad Poor Dad. Took me into a series of events that changed the course of my life. By my sophomore year of college, I got a license. I bought my first house, and by my senior year of college, I was making a very good living as an agent. Thought I was special, realized I wasn't after the financial crisis, and I just had a real estate license in a heartbeat. Had to eat a lot of humble pie and kind of rebuild. And in my rebuilding process, one of my obsessions was modeling success. And so I put myself in any room that I could where there was powerful producers who were doing it at a higher level than me and just modeling as much of them as possible. And one of those was Juan Martinez. I met Juan at a top producer event. And then, as I like to say, he called me with a script and said, "Hey, I want you to get involved in NAHREP. It's only going to take 2 hours of your week," which is the biggest lie Juan Martinez ever told me. But I wouldn't change anything. I went on to found the DC chapter and kind of reboot the DC metropolitan area. And then went on to get onto the national board and had the pleasure of serving as the national president once. So NAHREP and Gary specifically have been kind of a pivotal part of my journey and career, both as a friend and as a mentor and someone who's put me in uncomfortable situations in the best way possible. So, I think it's important that we recognize, again, going back to relationships really matter to me, who lifts you up and who opens doors for you. And Gary, as an individual and the organization he founded and led, has really done that for me. I can't think of another organization or person who's probably put me in rooms where I was not qualified to be in.
But he believed in you.
And I talk about that a lot. I think we, as human beings, just assume, okay, when I'm qualified, I can, versus no one's qualified until they do, right? And you can look at that as a parent with your first kid versus your second kid. And you can think of that the first time you took a listing, the first time you drove a car, the first time you did something you didn't know how to do. And so NAHREP has been a super instrumental part in my growth by creating opportunities that I wasn't qualified to do until I did them.
No, that's wonderful. I think one of the things that we talk a lot about at the national level is how NAHREP provides people that opportunity to become leaders. It's almost like a CEO in training opportunity, and so obviously you took it to the next level with the opportunities that you've had, but everyone has different opportunities depending on their level of commitment and where they stand within NAHREP. But do you have a specific favorite memory when it comes to NAHREP, or a specific challenge that you were able to overcome that you can kind of think about?
And it was early. It was even before I was on the national board or national president. I might have already been on the board, but I was in the middle of the financial crisis. Um, and I told this story to Gary, and he remembered it as well, where he had been asked to attend something in DC, and they gave him like 24 hours notice, and there was just no physical way for him to get from San Diego over to DC. He said, just go take notes. And I was in like 28, 29. I was years old. And I get to the address and I call Gary and I'm like, are you sure I'm supposed to be here? Because it was the Eisenhower offices of the White House. And there was probably 300 people in the room, including every major financial head of everything, FHFA, Fannie, Freddie, the FDIC, Comptroller of Currency, the chief of staff of the White House, and they were deciding the future of organized real estate, from the cash window to Fannie and Freddie to QRM to what became CFPB. And I literally was in the room when it happened, and I was terrified. And I remember texting Gary. I was like, I don't know what to do. He's like, just take notes. And I was intimidated and taking notes. And at one point, the head of FHFA looks at me, goes, "What do the Latinos think?" And I was like, who are you talking to? So
Not the first time you had to represent all Latinos, I imagine.
yeah. So it's those experiences that have created such a attachment for me and such an affinity into you know I can't think of anything that impactful that's happened to me in business. And again, like, that story's played out more than once, right? So I was in the Comptroller of Currency's office, and I've been in Congress when QM and QRM were being proposed, and sheepishly raised my hand. I'm like, 20% down payments mandatory is a bad idea. They're like, why? I'm like, because it'll ruin the economy, right? And it the other thing that NAHREP did for me was open my eyes into how legislation works in this country and how we are all citizen lobbyists if we so choose to, and that the folks that make the rules work for us as constituents. And they don't know much about specific domains, and if we don't use our voice and explain how their behavior could hurt our our industry, the people we serve, the families we serve, no one's coming to save us. Like, we as individuals need to be participants in democracy and the legislative process. And I mean, no amount of civics class could have taught me that the way I've had the experience of seeing it firsthand at NAHREP.
Yeah, I think Gary's mentioned how tired he is of being called the sleeping giant, right? He wants us to be able to finally speak up and have a voice.
And that's where I think Gary nailed it compared to other advocacy groups. That I think the conversation of, like, I deserve a seat at the table because fill in the blank civil rights activist sentence you want to put in there. It's very different than, hey, pay attention because we control the buying power in this country for the next 50 years. We will decide every major election in this year. We create household formation faster than everybody else. We get married younger and have more kids and buy real estate. Like, we do all of the household formation economic indicators that any and all direct-to-consumer products and services obsess over. So, coming into our power and realizing how important our voice is and how we vote with our dollars, right? Like, the voting with our dollars is products and services. It's what moves the economy. And, embracing the economic opportunity that is the Latino consumer versus, like, woe is me, I need a seat at the table. It's very different than, like, no, we are the engine that designs the table now.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the reasons why NAHREP is so diverse, right? It's Latino, yes, but underneath that, there's Cubanos, there's Colombians, Ecuadorians, Mexicans, of course, Puerto Ricans, and everyone pulling the same rope in the same direction, whether whether they're politically Democratic or Republican. But at the end of the day, it's because our message isn't emotional, it's economic, right? There's numbers behind it, and so it's easy for everyone to fall behind that because it's black and white.
100%.
So Leo, you've had an amazing career within real estate, whether it's obviously as a number one realtor, with NAHREP, starting Remine, and now CEO of EXP. I'd love to hear a little bit more from you on your leadership, your approach to leadership. What have you learned from your roles, and what kind of advice do you give to future leaders? And
I think so. First of all, it's understanding what leadership is, right? And leadership is a never-ending process of, in my opinion, understanding who you are and how you're wired, and then being able to help others, self-actualize. I think is the best way to put it. I think leaders that do a good job are the ones that try to pull out the best of people. Right? I think the concept of an army of one or needing to do it all yourself can be exhausting, and it will attribute to burnout, right? So I think a good leader pulls out the best of people. I think a good leader shares the microphone and the stage as much as possible, and does not make it about themselves. So, and I think those realizations come from, starting really young and believing your own hype, and then life will humble you because the universe tends to do that. And then, seeing what worked and what didn't work, and being as graceful with other people and having empathy. I'm really understanding what makes people tick. I think if you sit down with the people you lead, try to understand what their hopes and dreams are, what self-actualization looks like for them. How do you help them win in their world? That's how you end up having people that run through walls with you and for you. And I think the best example of leadership is leading from the front. And I know sometimes it's a cliche, but whether it's parenting or leading an organization, people don't listen to your words. They model your behavior. Mm-hmm. So I think if you just pick up the ball and show them how to do it, is the most impactful way to lead people. And also appreciate that people are in different seasons of their own life. And I think some leaders take stuff way too personally, right? It's like, look, if they grow and leave you, it's not a slight at you. It could be a nod that they no longer have the runway, and you may be able to create it or you may not. But also just celebrate their journey. And I think radical transparency, right? Like, do not create conversations behind people's back. Like, if there's an issue, confront it head on and be as transparent as possible. And I think people just appreciate it, right? I think between social media and the coming AI being embedded in everything we do, even more so than before, we're all going to see a polished version of everyone. And I've been talking about this for the last couple of weeks, not even months, that AI is going to level up all forms of communication. So everyone's going to be like a, perfect copywriter and a perfect this. Kind of like social media has given us this, like, fake version is the best way to put it of everyone's. It's a veneer. So now I think AI is going to do that to most forms of communication. And I think there's going to be a premium on real authentic interactions.
100%. Yeah.
Coming. Right? Like, I'm already seeing it. Like, if you see something formatted on social, we now know that you didn't write that. And again, with any shift or transformation in society, I think it creates an opportunity to grow again.
That wraps up part one with Leo Pareja. In part 2, we'll dive into how Leo stays motivated, a potential book title, and an unconventional habit that has been a game changer in his career. Stay tuned.